is Wendy Hummel, and it's Tactical Tip Tuesday, where I share a tip, tool, or dose of inspiration for your week. If you find value in this episode, please share it, give us a review, and if you'd like to be notified of future episodes, you can subscribe on our Podbean website or email me directly at wendy@bluelineyoga.com. We'd love to hear from you with questions, suggestions, input for future guests, or topics that you'd like to hear about. Today, I'd like to share with you a blog post I wrote a few weeks back. I had originally intended on sharing this much sooner, but COVID kind of hit our house pretty hard right after the new year, and time has pretty much stood still. So the inspiration behind this blog post was the show Ted Lasso, and it's called Be Curious Not Judgmental. My husband and I recently binged the show. This was before COVID. And it was on Apple TV. It's been out for quite a while, but we don't get a lot of opportunities to just hang out and watch TV. So we're a little bit behind the curve on this one. But if you're not familiar with the show and you're living under a rock like I was, Ted Lasso is played by Jason Sudeikis. He's one of our favorite comedians. And the show is about a Kansas college football coach who gets a job coaching soccer in England, something Ted knows absolutely nothing about. And since both of our girls play soccer, and it stars Jason Sudeikis, we figured it was worth a watch. Ted Lasso is, in a word, just nice. When Jason Sudeikis created the character, I later learned he was influenced by one of his own former coaches when he was growing up, and the Kansas values that he grew up with, things like kindness. As I watched, I wondered, even though it was a TV show, how Ted could take so much crap and yet remain unshaken, positive, and kind. In one of the episodes, Ted is challenged to play a game of darts, and a bet ensues with his boss's ex-husband. There's a lot on the line for the owner of the club, and she's understandably nervous and very skeptical of Ted. When Ted wins, after intentionally falling behind, he quotes Walt Whitman. He says most men have underestimated him his entire life, and if you've watched the show, you can probably see why. Instead of being curious about him, they were immediately judgmental. Since watching that episode and hearing that quote, I just can't get it out of my head. It has stuck with me intellectually and emotionally and made me curious about how often I fall into the judgment trap with myself, with others, and really just about anything. Get curious, not judgmental. The other day, I was driving in a part of town that I hadn't been to in a while, and this was before COVID, actually before Christmas. I had to go to Home Depot to find a Milwaukee brand tool for my husband's Christmas gift. And yes, I'm a good wife, but that's besides the point. I was driving back home after I went to Home Depot, and I noticed that there were a lot more storefronts that read vape shop. And there's also 2 new Scooters coffee shops that I'd never seen before. On practically every corner here in my town, and probably it's the same for any other towns in the United States, you can get all the caffeine, sugar-filled drinks, and snacks that you want. But how many places can you actually go get a fresh juice or a smoothie? I do love my morning coffee, don't get me wrong. I don't know that I'll ever give it up. But it did get me thinking, and I got curious. Why, as a culture, do we overindulge, overstuff, over-caffeinate to basically numb out? And it's not just substances. We numb out with work, shopping, food, social media, and more. And when I say we, I'm including myself in that as well. Adopting the holistic warrior mindset means knowing that healing is a daily practice. For most of my life, I overdid a lot, and I still find myself falling into some of those same patterns when it comes to my work in particular. However, since I started studying and practicing the holistic habits of Ayurveda, I have learned to get curious and not judgmental with myself. I let my body tell me what it needs, and I no longer beat myself up for making a bad choice. This holistic framework is all about being your own self-healer, less reliance on the external, and tapping into your body's innate wisdom. It's all about being curious. Adopting this holistic warrior mindset means knowing that healing is a daily practice. And this was tested for me recently when COVID hit me out of nowhere. I haven't been really sick in about 4 years. And so having to practice this and remember that every day, every minute sometimes, I had to be more curious and kind to myself was definitely a challenge. The habits of Ayurveda include things such as how we start our day, how much sleep we get, what we consume, whether that be food, alcohol, or the things that we watch and take in through our senses. Habits also determine whether we have an active versus a sedentary lifestyle. And this was another challenge for me recently because I wasn't able to be as active as I normally had been. What we watch on TV, even what we read and what we listen to, including our own thoughts, and unfortunately, are patterns of self-sabotage. I have been on the self-sabotage merry-go-round for most of my life, practicing good habits in different areas of my life, given a period of time, only to eventually jump off and derail all the progress that I had made. At first, this really frustrated me because this was a pattern that continually repeated itself. But then it made me curious. Why was it that I would get in my own way of success? Why would I derail myself even when something was seemingly working? Why periodically anyway would I find myself being my own worst enemy? Curiosity helped me to find some answers. Being a holistic warrior has armed me with the ability to recognize when I'm self-sabotaging and the understanding that when resistance rears its ugly head and when limiting beliefs arise, it's merely my subconscious mind's misguided way of trying to protect me, trying to keep me safe. Being a holistic warrior means facing the resistance and meeting it with resilience. This resilience is built on a foundation of habits that support my physiology and balances out my nervous system, which in turn provides an environment to do the hard work, to stay focused, and for personal growth. Being a holistic warrior means learning to be still and listen, and I've had to do that a lot lately. It means self-acceptance. It means doing the work that it takes to learn how to be your own healer and how to thrive. It means being curious and not judgmental. To me, viewing things through the curiosity lens means listening more and adopting a beginner's mindset, which is a place of not knowing, as opposed to the judgment lens, which is fogged up with assumptions, bias, and patterns that don't always serve me well. Ted Lasso's simple but crucial message of kindness made me think of the principle in yoga philosophy called Ahizma, which is one of the yamas or social precepts found in the 8 limbs of yoga. Ahizma is a fundamental value of yoga philosophy, and it's listed first for good reason. It means kindness. It means having compassion for both yourself and for others. As we are halfway through January of 2022, I'm going to continue to apply this principle to all areas of my life and strive to find more ways to be curious, to replace judgment with kindness, to not be so hard on myself, and to find more ways to be kind to others. We're better together. Be curious and not judgmental.